Georgia blows out Alabama in Atlanta in the SEC championship game. They go back to back, their third title in the last 5 years. I want to take some time to talk about the game, break it down, just some high level analysis, and some big takeaways ahead of the final committee rankings coming out tomorrow at noon on Sunday. Um, Georgia ends up winning this game 28-7. They dominate all the way through. Bama doesn't get on the board till the fourth quarter. Georgia scores in all four. Uh, just to break it down, starts off with a couple punts both ways, and then Georgia ends up blocking a punt, sets up short field. They get on the board early. Next drive for Alabama, it's an interception, and Georgia's up 14-0 just like that in the second quarter. And from there, I mean, Alabama was just absolutely dominated on every facet of the game. Yardage, Georgia dominates. Alabama ends with -3 rushing yards. I don't know the last time you remember. I know Alabama's had their rushing struggles this season, but -3 rushing yards from an Alabama team is something we hadn't seen in a long, long time, if at all. Georgia dominates first downs. They win the turnover battle, and they win third downs as well. And that I think was the big stat that we talked about that in week 4 in the game in Athens, where Alabama ends up beating Georgia because they were impressive on third down and Georgia was poor. I think Alabama gives something like 13 for 19 or 13 for 17 on third down in that first regular season matchup, and Georgia ends up being pretty poor. I think only a couple third down conversions this week. It was the opposite. Georgia goes a respectable 6 for 16 on third down. Alabama 3 for 14, 3 for 14, and a couple fourth down turnovers as well to top that off. Georgia with two fourth down conversions of their own. So they played aggressive. They didn't take their foot off the gas, and they didn't choke. It looked like there might be a bit of hope for Alabama early in the fourth quarter after they get that touchdown. Georgia, they get Georgia to a third down, and it looks like they might get, a quick three and out, get the ball back, be able to cut this to a one possession game. Instead, Georgia goes down the field and makes it 28-7, and the game is over. Yeah, Georgia just really impressive performance in all facets of the game. They win special teams. I know there was no kicking today, but they win, with their pump block. Zachariah Branch had a couple, well, one really big return to set up a short field for him. And then offensively, dominant. They dominate time of possession. They really just never let Alabama have a chance to get in the game. And defensively, it was stuffing. Um, from the Georgia defense was smothering, I'd like to say. I want to talk about that Alabama or the Georgia defense against this Alabama offense because one thing we've talked about all season with Ty Simpson is he's incredible when he has time in the pocket. We've seen it, especially in the first half of the season. But when the defense gets pressured to him, he's a completely different guy. And I was actually pretty impressed with some of the throws he made while he was under pressure. There were a couple plays where I was like, dang, like Georgia did really well there, and that was Ty Simpson just making something out of nothing. But he can only do so much, and it seemed like he was getting pressured every single time he dropped back in the pocket. Even if Georgia didn't necessarily convert those to sacks every single play. I mean, there was just absolutely nothing for Ty Simpson to do. There was really no time for any plays to develop, any big plays, and by the time they were down, three touchdowns in the third quarter. I mean, if you can't get big plays, there's just really no shot for Alabama to get back in the game, especially when they're not running the ball at all. And Georgia was able to just sit back. I think the commentators mentioned this, drop two safeties deep down the field, and they were still getting pressure on the quarterback. And so there's really nothing Alabama could do. Just a dominant display from Georgia's pass rush. And then I want to talk about the secondary as well, Ellis Robinson. I mean, there were a couple chances for Alabama to make some big plays. Um, and Ellis Robinson just shut them down. I mean, those were plays that if you go back to the 2021 SEC championship when Alabama hit a bunch of big plays, um, even this regular season matchup earlier in the season, especially in the first half where Alabama was hitting big plays. I think Georgia's secondary kind of gotten exposed in a couple of the last matchups against Alabama. Today they were not. There was absolutely nothing big allowed by Georgia, um, and part of that was the pass rush not giving the Alabama any time to develop anything downfield, but it was also just excellent coverage from the defense. And also, when a catch was made, just absolutely giving Alabama nothing after the catch. I mean, contact was instant. Um, and really, really impressive tackling performance from Georgia's defense as well. I mean, I think not only were they there as soon as the catch was made, but they made the tackle. I mean, there was very little done after the catch and after contact for Alabama. I think the one play that comes to mind is actually the Jeremy Bernard touchdown, where the ref kind of actually blocked Georgia's defense and kind of set that play up. Other than that, I can't even think of a play where Georgia was, poor in tackling. So it was really, really smothering, vintage performance from Georgia's defense. I think Chris Fowler was saying, with his N'Kobe Dean out there, his Jalen Carter out there, it certainly felt like it. This was a really, really impressive performance from Georgia's defense, and really a complete performance from all three facets of the game. We saw them do this, I think, for the first time all season against Texas. Then they go out and they play Charlotte. They put together a bit of a weird game against Georgia Tech. I think Georgia Tech was really prepared for that Georgia team. So I think altogether it was a pretty impressive performance for Georgia, even in a close win against GT. And then a dominant performance against Alabama. And I think the takeaway for Georgia here is um, they might just be the best team in the country. I mean, they're certainly heating up at the right time. They certainly have the coach who can put them in the right position to win these big games in the playoffs. And they had Dawgs on both sides of the ball who can make big plays happen. Another impressive performance from Gunnar Stockton. And yeah, I think Georgia should be really, really excited for the playoffs. Hopefully, I think the one thing I'm concerned about if I'm Georgia is we're probably getting the 2 seed this year. You got the 2 seed last year, a month off, and then you sort of walloped by Notre Dame out the gate. You might end up playing Notre Dame in the quarterfinals again this year. Um, I think if I'm Georgia, I'm a little worried about how much rest I might have. But at the same time, your team's pretty banged up. Um, you get this time to heal, and I think Kirby Smart is going to be able to make some changes from last year to not let that 3 weeks off or whatever it is affect them as negatively in the playoffs this time around. I want to talk about Alabama now because we've been talking all week about how the committee last year didn't punish SMU for losing the ACC championship game. They get into the playoffs as I want to say the 11th seed. And when I say punish, they didn't punish them in that they didn't drop them out of the playoffs, but SMU did drop um, in the rankings. Um, and we've been talking all week about how Alabama's, are they going to drop? Are they going to, if they lose? And I think the consensus was no. Like, we're not going to leave the SEC runner-up out of the playoffs in a 12-team format. It's really bad. One for, for college football. It's bad for, the ESPN and everyone, all the broadcasters doing the playoffs. It's bad for the SEC, and the SEC obviously holds all the power and leverage in the playoff. So it's not going to happen unless maybe if Alabama gets blown out, and I think we kind of all dismissed that scenario because we didn't expect Alabama to get blown out. Alabama, Georgia is always a one possession game, and in this time it wasn't. And so if I'm Alabama, I'm really concerned. I'm looking at your resume, 3 losses. The Auburn win last week, as much as the committee likes to say it was impressive, I don't know if it was. Um, and I'd be concerned because it seems to me like the committee is going to have to face a lot of pressure to put Miami in the playoffs. And it really seems to me that they don't want to put Notre Dame in. So if I'm an Alabama fan, I'm looking at Miami and Notre Dame, and I'm looking at 2 spots left for the three of us. And I'm thinking, man, it's really easy for the committee to say, put Miami in and put Notre Dame in and leave Alabama out. They have 3 losses, right? I don't know if the committee will do that. I think the path of least resistance for the committee is actually to just leave Notre Dame out and say, we're not going to punish Bama for losing an extra game. We're going to respect the head-to-head and put Miami in at probably the the 10 seed, I guess, because you got the two G5s rounding out um, the playoff teams. But yeah, I mean, the committee just seems hell bent on putting Notre Dame in, and so if I'm Alabama, I'm a little concerned because I think there's going to be a lot more outrage if you leave Miami out and put Notre Dame in than if you leave Alabama out after getting blown out by Georgia. And honestly, looking a lot less impressive in the last 4 or 5 weeks than they were in the first half of the season. So that's my perspective. We'll see what the committee does on Sunday at noon. Um, but yeah, a lot to be concerned about for Alabama. And if you do make the playoffs, you're probably looking at going to Norman, to a team you already lost to at home. And so I think there's gonna need to be some major changes for Alabama ahead of that playoff game. And if they miss out, we'll talk about recruiting Kalen DeBoer and what the future is like at Alabama, because that fan base is not going to be very happy. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But for now, it was a great conference championship weekend. Can't wait for the recruiting, or sorry, the playoff committee to announce the bracket, and we'll talk then.